After all, he's the president of France, not the president of the EU. He says we need to get the global south on board, inverted commas, to support these UN things, to support Ukraine. He's quite wide-ranging. He said this talk about regime changing in people's countries, he's not for that. He's not for regime change with Putin. That was, he didn't state it implicitly, but that's what I took away from what he was saying. He says in the past, all these regime changes that's went on around the world, you can name the countries that were involved in that yourself. It hasn't worked out the way that they thought it would, and it's basically ended up creating other messes. Sometimes you're better off dealing with the people that's already in charge. He says it's imperfect, kind of like, you know, Le Monde, the world is imperfect. You've just got to deal with what's in front of you, not constantly try and change it. He says it's too early, though, to get Russia to the table. I think he's playing for time there. It's like, if we can give the Ukrainians all of these weapons and stuff like that, perhaps Ukraine will be in a stronger negotiating position vis-a-vis join the EU, vis-a-vis bend Russia's arm if Russia's in a bad position and say, yeah, we've got you at the negotiating table, you need to allow Ukraine to join NATO. He says we need to agree a new normal. The current systems need good. Current system needs to be changed, and there needs to be a new normal with Russia, with something that we can all live with. But Russia cannot be imperialistic, i.e. can't make any land grabs. When you listen to some of these other politicians, you would think that Russia, Estonia, Latvia, yeah, this one, Poland, yeah, France, Germany, Spain, like it wants to invade the whole world when you're speaking to them. I can understand the people in the Balkans, the Latvians and people like that, because they are right up against, near to the Russian borders and stuff like that. But he says Russia can't be imperialistic anymore. He says that Germany stepped up and it's up in its game, and it's going to take a bigger role for security within NATO. And he says France and the other countries in the EU will be there as long as it takes. But, as ever, there's a but Ukraine must win. Yet again, he doesn't define what win means. Win means different things to different people. But I took it that win in this context that he was stating is that Russia gives up any land grabs that it's got, retreats, returns back to the original borders. The big thing which he didn't mention was whether he considers Crimea part of Ukraine or part of Russia. That's going to be, to my mind, that's a mega stumbling block. I think you can argue about some of these areas on the eastern part of Ukraine. But in Ukrainian terms, President Zelensky's terms, a win means no Russian land grab, no square centimetre. That we've got to get it all back. Even these places where the people don't want to be in Ukraine, we've got to get that back. And Crimea. From my point, like taking a sidebar here from what Macron is saying, I think somebody's got to, it's got to come from the White House, it's got to come from Joey B, President Joe Biden. It's got to come from the Americans, but the Americans seem to be fired up, hell-bent on forcing the Russians down this path. I would think the more realistic, pragmatic path would be somebody to rugby tackle Zelensky and say, you need to be sensible, make some agreement, give a bit of land on the eastern borders to the Ruskies, get some peace agreement with them, get this thing back to normal. That all the refugee and people that's all over Europe come back to Ukraine. We'll spot with some money to rebuild Ukraine. Let's face it, the amount of money that they're all spending on more munitions and shells and tanks and new aeroplanes and all the rest of the system. But sidebar again, just think in the background of all of these companies. Wow, more tanks, we're going to build more tanks. Aeroplane systems, yes, self-defense, up the budget. The Germans have skulked out of this 2% for years and years and years. The Germans have had a free ride, as some of the other European countries. And if you top that up for like over 50 years, it's a huge, massive, massive advantage that Germany has had over countries like Britain and France that spend nearer the 2% and more. But if you spent that money on rebuilding Ukraine, is that not a better way to spend it than making more armaments? You want to try and make Russia more Western, more prosperous. You tried to do that. But hey, guess what? Somebody blew up a pipeline. Bear in mind that it's not owned by the Russians entirely. 51%, I believe, is. But the other lot's owned by European energy companies. Have they been paid off not to query this? Don't know. Sidebar ended. Get back to what old Emmanuel was talking about. They've got to win in Ukraine. Doesn't define what win means. And he's saying that he agrees and he wants to see this 300,000 rapid response force. All the British armed forces, army-wise and stuff like that, could fit in one of the football premier stadiums. I've no idea, there's 50 or 60,000 of them. Sort of know. Does France got a load of soldiers? Is the Bundeskrieg, or whatever the German army's called, they got tens of thousands, or is a lot of them going to be Yankees? 300,000. It's a huge number of people. Is that productive? Well, it's got to be, isn't it? Because of these wars. I'm just not convinced. He continues, Europe's got to do more. We've got to spend more money, got more people, get more tanks, get more this, blah, blah, blah. The situation hasn't got to be again. I agree with that. How you do it, though. He's also saying that the Germans are going to relax their arms exports. Let's get some Deutschmarks, well, Deutsch euros or euros, whatever. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Do you want to buy some Leopard 3 tanks? We've just got some new ones coming off the line, bonny new colours, nice camouflage. says national defence, and this is something which they must have all got the memo from Joey B. That national defence equals collective defence, or more aptly, collective defence equals national defence. So if you collectively defend Europe, in essence you're defending yourself. So here presto, rattle the tin, get some lads into this 300,000 euro rapid response force. And he's pledging, not just promising, he's pledging. He's going to spend that 2%. And the 2%, depending on how you look at it and how you classify things, getting spent on defence, because the Germans pulled this trick a few times. They say that some of the foreign aid they give, well, that's national defence. He then pulled out the American freedom and democracy touch, like, we've got to get Ukraine back till it's freedom and democracy. He says he doesn't know what's in Putin's head. To be fair to Macron, I think he was one of the few people that tried to deal with Putin. He rocked up to Moscow last year around about this time, sat at that big long table. And no came of it, but at least he tried. Freedom and democracy, stuff like that. Says the intensity of hate versus the Russians. Stuff like that. It's unsustainable. I thought his speech was kind of reasonable. He basically harped on about this new imperialism. Russia can't be imperialistic. Like I mentioned, it's a bit hippopotamus, hypocrite. When you take a look at France's history, but to be fair to Macron, he's tried to address that. I think he looks at it like these philosophers, because he studied philosophy. So he'll be well aware of all of the Greek and these and the Germans and this and the French and all this kibber. And he'll be using this, you can't presume truth without experience. And there's a time, but it's not now. You've got to wait till the time sort of comes before you can make it. So I think basically he's saying Ukraine needs to win before we can negotiate a truce from strength, i.e. if Ukraine's won, we can then negotiate with Russia and we'll get a far better deal. That's fine, as long as you're going to accept there's going to be a load of more people killed on both sides.